October 12, 2012, Ben, a seasoned solo hiker, embarked on a trek through the vast wilderness of Denali National Park in Alaska. Ben, a 35-year-old from Fairbanks, had been hiking and exploring the outdoors since he was a teenager. His love for nature and adventure drove him to seek out the most challenging and remote trails. Known for his expertise and confidence, Ben often ventured into uncharted territories to experience the raw beauty of the wilderness. Denali National Park, famous for its towering peaks and diverse wildlife, was a place Ben had always wanted to explore more deeply. The park, located in the heart of Alaska, offered endless opportunities for adventure. Ben prepared meticulously for his trek, packing all the necessary gear, including a tent, food supplies, bear spray, and survival tools. He was excited to immerse himself in the untouched beauty of the park. As Ben set out from the main trail, he felt a sense of exhilaration. The air was crisp, and the autumn colors painted the landscape with shades of gold and red. He moved confidently through the dense forest, following game trails and navigating by map and compass. The quiet solitude of the wilderness was exactly what he had been seeking. After a long day of hiking, Ben found a suitable spot to set up camp. He chose a clearing near a stream where he could easily access water for cooking and drinking. As evening approached, he pitched his tent and prepared his meal. The serene setting and the sounds of nature around him brought a deep sense of peace. Unbeknownst to Ben, a grizzly bear was nearby searching for food. The bear, driven by hunger, caught the scent of Ben's cooking and began to approach the campsite. Ben, unaware of the danger, continued his evening routine, enjoying the tranquility of the wilderness. As the sun set, Ben was startled by the sudden presence of the grizzly bear. The bear, sensing an easy meal, charged at him with alarming speed. Ben grabbed his bear spray and tried to defend himself, but the bear was relentless. The powerful animal mauled him severely, leaving him with deep wounds and intense pain. Desperate to survive, Ben managed to climb a nearby tree, seeking refuge from the attacking bear. After a while, the bear lost interest and wandered off, but Ben remained in the tree, too scared and injured to come down. He spent a long night in agony, clinging to the branches and hoping for rescue. Ben's harrowing experience highlighted the risks of solo adventures in the wild. The isolation that he had once sought for peace had now become a test of his will to survive. The vast wilderness of Denali, with its beauty and danger, served as a stark reminder of the unpredictability of nature. Ben remained perched in the tree throughout the cold night, his body aching from the severe injuries inflicted by the grizzly bear. The darkness seemed endless, and every sound in the wilderness kept him on edge. He clung to the branches, shivering and in pain, praying for daylight to bring some relief. The experience was a harsh reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wild, even for the most experienced hikers. As dawn broke over Denali National Park, the first light brought a glimmer of hope to Ben. He knew he needed help urgently, but he was still too weak and injured to move. The pain from his wounds was unbearable, and he feared infection if not treated soon. His thoughts drifted to the safety measures he had always taken and how this encounter had tested every ounce of his endurance. Luckily, park rangers were patrolling the area that morning, conducting routine checks on trails and campsites. Denali National Park, with its vast expanse and numerous visitors, required constant vigilance from the rangers to ensure everyone's safety. As they moved through the forest, one of the rangers noticed signs of disturbance near Ben's campsite. Curious and concerned, they approached the area cautiously. The rangers soon spotted Ben's abandoned campsite and the clear signs of a bear encounter. Their trained eyes quickly assessed the situation, noticing the scattered gear and bear tracks leading away from the site. They began calling out, hoping to find Ben nearby. Hearing their voices, Ben mustered the strength to call back, his voice weak but audible. The rangers located Ben in the tree and were shocked to see his condition. They acted swiftly, providing first aid to stabilize him before helping him down from the tree. They carefully examined his wounds, applying dressings and ensuring he was as comfortable as possible given the circumstances. They radioed for medical evacuation, knowing that Ben needed urgent care at a hospital. A helicopter was dispatched from the park's headquarters, and within a short time, it arrived to airlift Ben to Fairbanks Memorial Hospital. The rangers stayed with him, offering reassurance and support. The journey to the hospital was tense, but Ben remained conscious, driven by the hope of recovery and the comfort of knowing he was in capable hands. At the hospital, doctors and nurses worked quickly to treat Ben's injuries. He required surgery to repair the deep wounds and prevent infection. The medical team was impressed by his resilience and determination to survive such a harrowing ordeal. Over the next few days, Ben began the slow process of recovery, supported by the dedicated hospital staff and the concern of friends and family who had learned of his ordeal. The story of Ben's encounter with the grizzly bear spread quickly, serving as a powerful reminder of the unpredictability and danger of solo wilderness adventures. His experience underscored the importance of preparation, awareness, and respect for nature's power. Park authorities used Ben's story to educate others about safety in bear country, emphasizing the need to follow guidelines and take precautions seriously. As Ben recovered, he reflected on the experience that had tested his limits. The wilderness he loved had shown him both its beauty and its peril. He knew he would continue to explore and hike, but with an even greater respect for the natural world and the risks it presented. His encounter with the grizzly bear became a part of his life story, a testament to his courage and the enduring spirit of adventure. In the end, Ben's survival was not just a personal victory, but also a lesson for others. It highlighted the thin line between thrill and danger in the wild. His tale of endurance and rescue became an inspiration, reminding everyone of the need for caution and the incredible strength required to face the unexpected challenges of nature. The Canadian Rockies, with their towering peaks and vast forests, offer a breathtaking retreat into nature's raw beauty. It was here that the Roberts family, Mark, Emily, and their children, Sarah and James, decided to spend a day in solitude, far from marked trails and campgrounds. Mark, an experienced outdoorsman, chose a secluded clearing surrounded by towering pines where the family could enjoy a peaceful picnic with a view of the majestic mountains. They arrived just before noon, the sun casting dappled light through the canopy as they set up their picnic. Emily laid out a blanket while the children, filled with excitement, explored the nearby woods. As Doug prepared the grill, the family relaxed, enjoying the serene environment. Their laughter filled the air, a sharp contrast to the stillness of the wilderness. Unbeknownst to them, a massive grizzly bear, drawn by the scent of their food, was silently approaching. The bear, in its prime and preparing for hibernation, had been foraging nearby when the smell of grilled meat caught its attention. Driven by instinct, it moved methodically through the underbrush, its enormous form almost silent. Concealed by the trees at the edge of the clearing, the bear watched the family, drawn closer by the overwhelming scent of food. In this remote expanse, the bear's powerful presence went unnoticed, a silent reminder of the wild, untamed forces that still rule these mountains. For a moment it hesitated. The bear's instincts were conflicted. Part of it was wary of the humans, but the hunger gnawing at its belly was stronger. It took a step forward, then another, its massive frame emerging from the shadows into the clearing. Doug was the first to notice the bear. He had been tending to the grill when a movement at the edge of his vision caught his attention. His heart skipped a beat as he turned and saw the enormous grizzly bear lumbering toward them. The animal's size and the intensity in its eyes triggered an immediate surge of adrenaline in Mark. He knew in that instant that they were in grave danger. Without thinking, Doug shouted to Emily and the children. His voice broke the peace of the clearing, sending a jolt of fear through the family. Emily turned, her eyes widening in terror as she saw the bear. She grabbed Sarah and James, pulling them close, her mind racing as she tried to comprehend the sudden and terrifying shift in their peaceful day. The bear, now fully committed, charged at the family. It moved with a speed and ferocity that belied its size, its powerful muscles propelling it across the clearing in seconds. The bear's focus was on the picnic table, where the food lay spread out, an easy meal if not for the humans that stood in its way. Doug acted on instinct. He reached for the hunting knife he always carried, a large, sharp blade that had served him well on many camping trips. As the bear closed in, Doug placed himself between the animal and his family, his mind focused solely on protecting them. The bear reached the picnic table, its momentum sending the heavy wooden structure flying as it overturned the table in its rush to get to the food. The noise was deafening, the sound of splintering wood, the crash of dishes and food scattering across the ground, and the bear's growls filled the air. Emily, clutching the children, backed away as far as she could, her heart pounding in her chest. The bear was now only a few feet away from Mark, who held his ground, knife in hand, determined to do whatever it took to defend his family. The bear lunged at Mark, its mighty jaws snapping shut just inches from his face. Doug swung the knife in a wide arc, the blade slicing through the air and into the bear's thick fur. The bear roared in pain and fury, its massive paw swiping at Doug with a force that knocked him to the ground. The impact was brutal. Doug felt the wind knocked out of him as he hit the ground, his vision blurring for a moment. But he couldn't afford to stay down. Ignoring the pain, Doug scrambled to his feet, his hand tightening around the knife. The bear was on him again, its jaws snapping at his arm. Doug thrust the knife forward, driving the blade deep into the bear's shoulder. The bear roared again, this time in a rage, as it reared up on its hind legs, towering over Mark. It was a fight for survival now. Doug knew he had to keep the bear's attention on him, away from Emily and the children. He stabbed at the bear again, aiming for its neck, but the bear's thick fur and muscles deflected the blow. The bear's paw came down on Mark's chest, the claws raking through his shirt and into his flesh. The pain was excruciating, but Doug didn't falter. He drove the knife into the bear's side, twisting the blade with all his strength. The bear, now bleeding from multiple wounds, let out a final enraged bellow. It swiped at Doug one last time, knocking him to the ground before turning and retreating into the forest. The animal's instinct for self-preservation had finally overridden its hunger, the pain and blood loss driving it back into the safety of the trees. Doug lay on the ground, his breath ragged and shallow, his body a mass of searing pain. The bear's claws shredded his chest and arms, but he was alive, and his family was safe. Emily knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face as she pressed her hands to his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. Sarah and James stood frozen, their eyes wide with fear. With Emily's help, Doug struggled to his feet. Each step sent waves of pain through his body, but he forced himself to keep moving. They reached the SUV, where Emily quickly bundled the children inside before helping Doug into the passenger seat. The car's interior felt suffocating, but it was a refuge. Emily started the engine, her hands trembling as she drove toward the nearest town. Mark's vision blurred as he fought to stay conscious, his wounds still bleeding. The journey was a blur of fear and urgency. At the hospital, Doug was rushed into surgery. Hours later, a doctor informed Emily that he had survived but faced a long recovery. The bear, wounded and wary, retreated deep into the forest, carrying the memory of the encounter with it. It was July 6, 2024, in a remote mining camp in Siberia. A group of Russian mine workers had gathered at their makeshift camp after a long day underground. These miners, from various parts of Russia, had come together to work in the rich, mineral-laden region of Siberia. They were experienced and hard-working, driven by the promise of good wages and steady employment. The mining camp was located in the Krasnoyarsk Krai region, known for its vast wilderness and harsh conditions. The workers had set up their camp near the edge of the forest, using tents and temporary shelters for their accommodations. Each day, they descended into the mine, enduring the tough labor and the risks that came with working underground. Despite the challenges, they found camaraderie and a sense of purpose in their shared efforts. The miners had a routine: work hard during the day and gather around the campfire at night. They cooked their meals over the open flame, sharing stories and enjoying a brief respite from their demanding jobs. The smell of their cooking often filled the air, a comforting reminder of their shared lives in this remote place. On this particular evening, the miners were tired, but content. They had just finished their meal and were settling in for the night. The sky above was clear, and the cool Siberian breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees. Unbeknownst to them, a grizzly bear, drawn by the scent of food, was lurking on the outskirts of the camp. The bear, hungry and desperate, had wandered close to the camp. Its keen sense of smell had led it to the miners' site, where the aroma of cooked food lingered. The bear had been struggling to find enough food in the harsh Siberian environment, and the scent was too tempting to resist. The miners, unaware of the danger, continued their evening routines. Some cleaned up after dinner, while others prepared to sleep. The peaceful atmosphere was abruptly shattered when the bear, driven by hunger and aggression, burst into the camp. The sudden attack caught everyone off guard. The bear's ferocity was overwhelming. It charged at the miners, who tried to defend themselves with whatever tools and makeshift weapons they could find. Shovels, pickaxes, and even branches were used in a desperate attempt to fend off the massive animal. The bear, however, was relentless. Its powerful claws and jaws inflicted serious injuries on several workers. Panic spread through the camp as the miners fought for their lives. The scene was chaotic, with shouts and the sounds of struggle filling the air. Despite their best efforts, the miners could not match the bear's strength and fury. The tragic event unfolded quickly, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Several workers were fatally injured before the bear was finally driven away. The surviving miners, shaken and grieving, tended to the injured and mourned the loss of their friends. The attack highlighted the constant threat of wildlife in isolated areas like the Siberian wilderness. The miners, who had come to Siberia seeking fortune and stability, were reminded of the unforgiving nature of their environment and the ever-present dangers that came with it. The miners, now faced with the aftermath of the brutal attack, quickly organized themselves to help the injured. They used their first aid kits to treat wounds as best as they could, but it was clear that some injuries were too severe for their limited supplies. The gravity of the situation set in, and they realized they needed to get professional medical help as soon as possible. The nearest town with a medical facility was Yeniseisk, a remote location, but it was still their best hope. They used their radios to contact the mining company's headquarters, explaining the urgent need for medical evacuation. The response was swift, and a helicopter was dispatched from Yeniseisk. The miners prepared a makeshift landing area for the helicopter, clearing away debris and setting up lights to guide the pilot. As they waited for the helicopter, the miners did their best to keep the spirits of the injured high. The cool night air seemed even colder as they tended to their fallen comrades, using blankets to keep them warm. The pain and fear in the eyes of their friends were a harsh reminder of the danger they all faced in the Siberian wilderness. Hours later, the sound of the helicopter approaching brought a sense of hope. The pilot skillfully landed in the makeshift area, and the medical team quickly assessed the situation. The injured were carefully loaded onto the helicopter, and those with the most severe injuries were prioritized. The miners watched as their friends were flown to safety, praying for their recovery. With the immediate crisis over, the remaining miners gathered to discuss what had happened. The attack was a grim reminder of the risks of working in such an isolated and wild environment. They knew they had to be more vigilant in the future, not just with their work, but also with their safety protocols regarding wildlife. They decided to set up better food storage systems and create a more secure perimeter around their camp to prevent such incidents. News of the attack spread quickly. It reached the local authorities and wildlife experts who came to the camp to investigate. They wanted to understand what had driven the bear to such desperation. The experts explained that food scarcity and the encroachment of human activity into wildlife habitats often led to such dangerous encounters. The miners cooperated with the investigation, sharing their experiences and learning more about living alongside wild animals. They realized the importance of respecting the natural habitat and the creatures that lived there. The attack had left a mark on the mining community, a stark lesson in the balance of nature and human activity. In Yeniseisk, the injured miners received the medical care they needed. Some had to undergo surgeries, while others were treated for less severe wounds. The town's hospital staff worked tirelessly to help them recover. The miners' families, upon hearing the news, rushed to the hospital to be with their loved ones. The reunion was filled with relief and tears as they realized how close they had come to losing their family members. The mining company also took steps to improve safety. They provided additional training for the workers on how to deal with wildlife encounters and reinforced the importance of following safety protocols. They also invested in better equipment and emergency supplies to ensure that the miners were better prepared for any future incidents. Andres Calderon, a seasoned solo backpacker from Bogotá, Colombia, was drawn to the rugged beauty of Colorado's backcountry. His years of experience navigating harsh terrains and thriving in solitude had prepared him for the challenge. The jagged peaks of the Rockies and dense pine forests promised the isolation and connection to nature he craved. Carefully planning his route through some of the most secluded parts of the wilderness, Andres was aware of the risks. He knew he was in bear country and took every precaution, from storing food high in trees to keeping bear spray at hand. Despite his extensive knowledge, Andres had never encountered a grizzly in all his years of backpacking. The days passed peacefully as Andres trekked more profoundly into the mountains, with the landscape shifting between dense forests and open meadows. The unpredictable weather added to the thrill, but it was the vastness and unpredictability of the wilderness that both captivated and challenged him. One night, as he settled into camp, the first sign of danger appeared, a set of fresh, grisly tracks in the mud. Unbeknownst to Andres, a bear had been silently following his trail, drawn by the scent of his food or simple curiosity. The massive creature blended seamlessly with the shadows, patiently biding its time as it trailed the unsuspecting backpacker. Andres remained blissfully unaware of the danger lurking nearby. He continued his trek the following day, the sun rising over the mountains and casting a warm, golden light over the landscape. The trail led him down into a deep valley, where a clear, fast-moving stream cut through the forest. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and Andres decided it was the perfect spot to rest and refill his water supply. He knelt by the stream, savoring the coolness of the water as it flowed over his hands. The sound of the rushing water was soothing, a welcome respite after the long hike. As he sat by the stream, Andres felt a sense of peace wash over him. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, and the distant call of a hawk soaring high above. He closed his eyes, letting the sounds envelop him, his mind drifting into a state of contentment. The weight of his pack was a distant memory, the aches in his muscles dulled by the beauty of his surroundings, but the tranquility was deceptive. The grizzly bear, still following Andres' scent, had drawn closer. It had crossed the same ridge he had descended, its powerful limbs propelling it down the slope with ease. The bear's keen sense of smell had led it directly to the stream, where it paused, its eyes locking onto the figure of Andres. There was no warning, no growl or rustle of leaves. The bear moved with the silence of a predator, its massive paws barely making a sound as it approached. Andres, still lost in his thoughts, had no time to react. The bear lunged at him with astonishing speed, its mighty jaws snapping shut on his shoulder before he could even register what was happening. The force of the attack knocked him to the ground, his body crumpling under the weight of the bear. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, a searing agony that shot through his entire body. He tried to fight back, to push the bear off him, but it was futile. The grizzly was relentless, its powerful claws raking across his torso, tearing through flesh and muscle with ease. The attack was over in moments, but it felt like an eternity. Andres lay motionless, his body broken and bloodied, as the bear retreated into the forest, its curiosity or hunger satisfied. The forest's sounds returned to normal, the birds resuming their songs as if nothing had happened. The stream continued to flow, its waters now tinged with red. Andres' backpack lay discarded on the ground, its contents scattered around the clearing. Days passed, and Andres' absence was noticed when he failed to check in as planned. Friends and family grew worried, knowing his meticulous nature and the fact that he always kept to his schedule. A search was organized, and a team of experienced hikers and rescue personnel was dispatched to the area. They scoured the trail he had planned to take, their eyes scanning the ground for any sign of him. It was a grueling search, with the dense forest and rugged terrain making progress slow and difficult. The weather had turned, with rain and fog rolling in from the mountains, obscuring their vision and making the trail slippery and treacherous. Days turned into weeks, and hope began to fade. But the searchers were determined, knowing that every moment counted in finding Andres, or at least discovering what had happened to him. It was on the 8th day that they found him. The stream where Andres had rested was still, the water running clear once more. His remains were scattered across the clearing, a gruesome testament to the violence of the attack. The searchers stood in silence, the weight of the discovery pressing down on them. They had found Andres, but it was not the outcome anyone had hoped for. The news of Andres' death spread quickly, reaching his loved ones back in Colombia and the broader community of hikers and outdoor enthusiasts. His death was a stark reminder of the dangers that came with solo backpacking in grizzly territory. The wilderness that Andres had loved so deeply had claimed his life, a sobering reality for those who shared his passion for adventure. The incident prompted calls for better awareness and preparation among solo hikers in grizzly territories. Experts and wildlife officials urged hikers to travel in groups, carry bear spray, and be vigilant at all times. Andres' story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most experienced and skilled outdoor people were not immune to the dangers of the wild. July 15, 2014, the Thompson family decided to enjoy a summer picnic in the scenic Yosemite National Park. The family, consisting of parents John and Mary and their 2 children, Emily and Jake, loved spending time outdoors. John, a 40-year-old engineer from San Francisco, and Mary, a 38-year-old teacher, had always shared a passion for nature. They often took their children on weekend trips to explore the beautiful parks and trails of California. The Thompsons had planned this picnic for weeks. They chose a spot near the Merced River, a picturesque area known for its stunning views and tranquil setting. The kids were excited about the trip, looking forward to playing by the river and enjoying the delicious food their parents had prepared. The family packed all the essentials, including a large picnic blanket, a cooler filled with food, and a camping stove for cooking. The day started beautifully. The sky was clear, and the sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the park. The Thompsons arrived early, finding the perfect spot by the river. They spread out their blanket, set up the camping stove, and began to unpack their meal. The children ran to the water's edge, laughing and splashing as they played. John and Mary watched them with smiles, happy to see their kids enjoying the great outdoors. The family spent the morning relaxing and exploring the area. They took a short hike along the river, marveling at the lush greenery and the majestic granite cliffs that Yosemite is famous for. John and Mary took turns taking pictures, capturing the beauty of the park and the joy on their children's faces. It was a perfect day, filled with laughter and the simple pleasures of being together in nature. As noon approached, they returned to their picnic spot to prepare lunch. Mary started cooking on the camping stove, while John helped the kids get ready to eat. The smell of grilled sandwiches and fresh fruit filled the air, making everyone even more eager to dig in. They gathered around the blanket, enjoying their meal and each other's company. Unbeknownst to the Thompsons, a grizzly bear was nearby, drawn by the enticing aroma of their food. The bear had been foraging in the area and was now making its way toward the family. The serene picnic was about to take a terrifying turn. As the family continued their meal, they suddenly noticed the bear approaching. The bear, large and powerful, moved quickly towards the picnic area. John and Mary realized the danger immediately. John, thinking fast, grabbed the camping stove and tried to use it to fend off the bear. Mary, her heart racing, ushered Emily and Jake towards the car, trying to keep them calm and safe. The bear, undeterred by the stove, charged at John. The children screamed as they watched their father struggle. Mary managed to get the kids into the car, locking the doors behind them. She turned back to see John being attacked by the bear, and his efforts to protect his family put him in grave danger. John fought bravely, using the camping stove to fend off the grizzly bear as best he could. The bear, however, was strong and determined. It swiped at John with its powerful claws, causing deep wounds. John yelled in pain, but continued to stand his ground, trying to protect his family. The children watched in terror from the safety of the car, their mother holding them close. The noise and commotion attracted the attention of nearby park rangers. Yosemite National Park, known for its stunning landscapes and diverse wildlife, has experienced bear encounters before. The rangers were well trained and equipped to handle such situations. They quickly made their way to the Thompson family's location, ready to intervene. As the rangers approached, they used loud noises and bear spray to scare the grizzly bear away. The bear, startled by the sudden onslaught, retreated back into the forest. John collapsed to the ground, exhausted and in severe pain. The rangers rushed to his side, providing first aid and assessing his injuries. He had several deep cuts and bruises, but was conscious and alert. Mary, still holding Emily and Jake, ran over to her husband. The rangers assured her that John would receive the best care possible. An ambulance was called, and John was quickly transported to the nearest hospital in Yosemite Valley. The family was shaken, but they were all together and safe. At the hospital, doctors treated John's injuries. He needed stitches for the deep cuts and pain medication to manage his discomfort. The medical team praised his bravery and quick thinking, which had undoubtedly saved his family from greater harm. John's recovery would take time, but he was expected to heal fully. The incident at Yosemite National Park served as a sobering reminder of the potential dangers of wildlife encounters. The park authorities took the opportunity to educate visitors about the importance of being prepared and cautious in bear country. They reinforced the need to store food properly and always to be aware of one's surroundings. The Thompson family's story spread quickly, highlighting the need for safety measures when enjoying the great outdoors. The park installed additional signs and provided more resources to help visitors understand the risks and how to mitigate them. The rangers continued their patrols, ensuring that both the wildlife and the visitors remained safe. For the Thompson family, the day had turned from joyous to nightmarish in a matter of moments, yet they remained resilient. John's heroic actions had kept them safe, and they were grateful to the rangers who had come to their aid. As John recovered, the family drew closer, thankful for each other and for the support they received. In the weeks that followed, John's story became a powerful testament to human courage and the unpredictable nature of the wilderness. He shared his experience with others, hoping to raise awareness about the importance of respecting wildlife and being prepared for emergencies. The family returned to their home in San Francisco, carrying with them the lessons learned from their harrowing encounter. It was August 2018, and Emma, an avid kayaker, set out to explore the remote rivers of Alaska. Emma, a 28-year-old outdoor enthusiast from Anchorage, had been kayaking since she was a teenager. She loved the thrill of navigating through serene waterways, surrounded by nature's beauty. Over the years, she developed a deep passion for kayaking and explored many of Alaska's rivers. Emma had planned this trip for months. She chose a remote area in the Kenai Peninsula, known for its breathtaking landscapes and diverse wildlife. She packed all her gear, including her kayak, paddle, safety equipment, and enough supplies for a week-long adventure. Emma was excited about the journey, looking forward to the solitude and the challenge of paddling through untouched nature. On the morning of August 12th, the weather was perfect. The sky was clear, and the air was crisp. Emma set off early, eager to start her adventure. She paddled through the calm waters, enjoying the peaceful surroundings. The narrow channels of the Kenai Peninsula offered stunning views of lush forests and towering mountains. Emma felt a deep sense of freedom and connection to the wilderness. As she paddled deeper into the remote area, Emma admired the wildlife around her. She saw eagles soaring overhead and salmon swimming beneath her kayak. The tranquility of the river was soothing, and Emma relished every moment. She was well prepared and confident in her skills, having tackled many challenging waterways in the past. After several hours of paddling, Emma entered a particularly narrow and serene channel. The water was clear, and the gentle flow carried her smoothly along. She felt at peace, absorbed in the beauty of her surroundings. However, as she rounded a bend in the channel, she suddenly spotted a grizzly bear on the riverbank. The bear was fishing, unaware of Emma's approach. Startled by the sudden appearance of the kayak, the bear looked up and locked eyes with Emma. A moment of tension filled the air. The bear, feeling threatened, charged into the water towards Emma. Panic surged through her as she tried to paddle away quickly. The bear's powerful strides brought it closer with alarming speed. Emma's heart raced as she struggled to escape. The bear reached her kayak and with a mighty swipe, capsized it. Emma was thrown into the cold water, disoriented and terrified. She surfaced, gasping for air, and saw the bear approaching. In a desperate attempt to defend herself, Emma grabbed her paddle and used it to fend off the bear. The bear's aggression was overwhelming. Emma swung her paddle, trying to keep the bear at bay, but the powerful animal was relentless. She screamed for help, hoping that someone nearby might hear her. The water was icy, and her strength was fading quickly. Emma's love for kayaking had led her into a life-threatening encounter, and she fought with every ounce of strength she had to survive. Emma continued to struggle in the icy water, using her paddle to keep the grizzly bear at bay. The bear, determined and aggressive, swiped at her with its powerful claws. Emma's heart pounded as she fought to stay afloat and defend herself. Her screams echoed through the narrow channel, carrying through the quiet wilderness. Nearby, a group of campers at a site along the Kenai River heard the desperate cries for help. They quickly realized that someone was in serious trouble and rushed to the riverbank to investigate. As they peered through the trees, they saw the terrifying scene unfold. Emma, in the water, trying to fend off the attacking bear. The campers sprang into action. They grabbed whatever they could find, pots, pans, and sticks, and made loud noises, hoping to scare the bear away. The bear, distracted by the commotion, turned its attention toward the noise, giving Emma a brief respite. Taking advantage of the distraction, Emma paddled towards the shore as fast as she could. The campers continued to make noise, banging on pots and shouting. The bear, now confused and agitated, slowly retreated to the riverbank. Emma, exhausted and shivering, reached the shore and collapsed into the arms of one of the campers. They quickly wrapped her in a warm blanket and assessed her injuries. Emma had several deep cuts and bruises from the bear's attack. The campers administered first aid, cleaning her wounds and doing their best to stop the bleeding. They knew she needed professional medical help as soon as possible. One of the campers had a satellite phone and used it to call for emergency assistance. They gave their exact location and described Emma's condition, urging the authorities to send help quickly. While waiting for the rescue team, the campers kept Emma warm and comfortable. They gave her water and spoke soothingly to her, trying to keep her calm. Emma's body ached, and the adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her in immense pain. She was grateful for the campers' quick response and their efforts to save her. After what felt like an eternity, the sound of a helicopter approached. The rescue team landed near the campsite and quickly assessed the situation. They carefully lifted Emma onto a stretcher and carried her to the helicopter. The campers watched with relief as Emma was flown to the nearest hospital in Soldotna, Alaska. At the hospital, doctors treated Emma's injuries. She underwent surgery to repair the damage caused by the bear's claws. The medical team was amazed by her strength and will to survive. Emma's recovery was slow, but she was determined to regain her strength and return to the activities she loved. The incident on the Kenai River served as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of wildlife encounters. Emma's story was shared widely, highlighting the importance of being prepared and staying vigilant in the wilderness. Despite the trauma, Emma remained passionate about kayaking and the natural world. She used her experience to educate others about safety and respect for wildlife. In the months that followed, Emma returned to the water, this time with a greater awareness of the risks. She equipped herself with better safety gear and took extra precautions during her trips. Her love for kayaking and nature remained undiminished, and she continued to explore the remote rivers of Alaska, driven by the same sense of adventure that had led her there in the first place. The vast Siberian wilderness, with its endless expanse of ice, snow, and dense forests, remained untouched by time, a realm where nature's power was absolute. Here in this unforgiving landscape, two German scientists, Dr. Klaus Ritter and Dr. Anja Weber, embarked on a critical mission to study the effects of climate change on local wildlife. Their journey had been arduous, involving planes, helicopters, and snowmobiles to reach a remote river valley deep within the taiga forest, where they would set up camp and begin their research. On their first morning, Klaus and Anja, bundled in thermal layers against the biting cold, headed to the partially frozen river to collect water samples. The work was slow and methodical, with each sample taken with care and precision. By midday, they had enough data to return to camp and begin their analysis. Klaus set up the portable lab equipment while Anja filtered the water samples, both working in focused silence, the cold air heavy around them. As the afternoon waned, the sun cast a golden light over the landscape before dipping low, plunging the temperature further. Klaus and Anja took turns stoking their small wood stove, seeking warmth as they continued their work. The surrounding wilderness grew more foreboding with the fading light, the river's dark waters hidden beneath a thin layer of ice, and the towering trees standing as silent, snow-covered sentinels. With evening approaching, they paused to prepare dinner, boiling water over a gas stove to rehydrate freeze-dried meals. The meal, though simple, provided much-needed warmth and sustenance in the harsh environment. Afterward, they reviewed their findings, discussed the implications, and planned the next day's activities. Klaus and Anja knew the risks of their work. In this remote part of Siberia, they were utterly isolated. Any mishap could be catastrophic. Yet with their experience and precautions, they remained confident in their ability to navigate the challenges of this unforgiving wilderness. As night fell, they secured their camp, making sure that their food and supplies were stored properly to avoid attracting any unwanted visitors. Klaus was the first to turn in for the night, retreating to his sleeping bag inside the tent. Anya stayed up a little longer, finishing her notes and checking the equipment one last time before she too climbed into her sleeping bag. The warmth of the tent and the comfort of the sleeping bags were a welcome reprieve from the cold outside, and soon both scientists were fast asleep, their exhaustion from the day's work lulling them into a deep slumber. But the wilderness was not entirely still. In the darkness, something stirred in the forest, moving silently among the trees. It was a large, powerful creature, its senses keen, its instincts sharp. The grizzly bear, drawn by the scent of food and the unfamiliar presence of humans in its territory, had been circling the camp for hours, its curiosity piqued and its hunger growing. The bear was a formidable predator, standing nearly 9 feet tall on its hind legs and weighing close to 1,000 pounds. The bear had been in a state of semi-hibernation, its body conserving energy during the long, harsh winter. But the smell of food had awakened it thoroughly, and now it was on the hunt. The bear approached the camp cautiously, its massive paws making almost no sound as they pressed into the snow. It paused at the edge of the clearing, its eyes locked on the tents. Inside, Klaus and Anya slept, unaware of the danger that lurked just outside. The bear moved closer, its nose twitching as it picked up the scent of the food stored in the kitchen area. It sniffed around the tents, its massive head brushing against the fabric. But the scientists remained oblivious, lost in their dreams. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, the bear tore into the makeshift kitchen, scattering supplies and ripping open containers in search of food. The noise jolted Klaus and Anya awake, their hearts pounding as they realized what was happening. They scrambled out of their sleeping bags, disoriented and terrified, but it was too late. The bear had already caught their scent, and now it turned its attention to them. Klaus was the first to react, grabbing a flare gun from his pack in a desperate attempt to scare the bear away. He fired the flare into the air, the bright light illuminating the clearing for a brief moment, but it only seemed to anger the bear. With a ferocious roar, it charged at Klaus, its mighty jaws snapping shut around his arm and pulling him to the ground. The flare gun fell from his hand as he struggled to free himself, but the bear was too strong, its teeth sinking deep into his flesh. Anya stood paralyzed as the bear mauled Klaus, its powerful paws pinning him to the ground. Her mind raced in terror, unable to process what was happening. She frantically searched her pack for anything to help, but the bear turned its attention to her. In a blind panic, Anya tried to run, but the snow hindered her, and the bear was upon her in an instant. Its claws raked her back, and she fell, screaming in pain. The bear's jaws clamped onto her neck, silencing her forever. The camp, once orderly, was now a scene of devastation, with torn tents, scattered supplies, and blood-stained snow. As dawn broke, the wilderness remained unchanged, indifferent to the lives lost. Klaus and Anya lay frozen, their journey into the wilderness ending in brutal tragedy. When Klaus and Anya's communication with their team in Germany ceased, concern grew. They had been diligent in sending updates, and their silence was alarming. A search party was organized, consisting of local guides, wildlife experts, and research team members. Days later, they arrived at the camp to a scene of horror: shredded tents, scattered supplies, and blood-stained snow. The bodies of Klaus and Anya were quickly found, buried in snow, their injuries revealing the ferocity of the bear's attack. Klaus and Anya were respected researchers dedicated to understanding climate change's impact on fragile ecosystems. Their deaths shocked the scientific community. Their loss was deeply felt not only by loved ones, but also by the field of environmental science, where their contributions had been invaluable. The tragedy sparked a debate about the safety of researchers in remote and dangerous environments. Calls for stricter safety protocols, better training, and advanced technology to monitor potential threats became widespread. Despite the loss, the research team resolved to continue the work Klaus and Anya had started, honoring their legacy by completing the study. It was September 2024, and a documentary film crew traveled to the wilds of British Columbia to capture footage of grizzly bears in their natural habitat. The crew, led by director Sarah and cameraman Jake, had years of experience filming wildlife around the world. They were known for their stunning documentaries that brought viewers close to nature's most majestic creatures. The team included 5 members: Sarah, Jake, sound technician Mark, lighting expert Emily, and wildlife expert Tom. They had spent months planning this trip, choosing the Great Bear Rainforest for its dense population of grizzly bears and untouched beauty. The goal was to document the daily lives of these powerful animals, especially focusing on the interactions between mother bears and their cubs. The Great Bear Rainforest, located on the central coast of British Columbia, is a pristine wilderness home to a rich variety of wildlife. The crew was excited about the opportunity to film in such a remote and beautiful location. They arrived with all their gear, including high-definition cameras, sound equipment, and supplies for their stay in the wild. On the morning of September 10th, the crew set out to find a suitable spot for filming. The weather was cool and overcast, typical for the rainforest. They trekked through dense undergrowth and towering trees, following trails that led to known bear habitats. They planned to set up near a river where bears often fished for salmon, providing a perfect backdrop for their documentary. After hours of hiking, they found an ideal location. It was a clearing by the river with signs of recent bear activity. They could see fresh tracks and fish remains, evidence that bears had been there recently. Excited, they began setting up their equipment and positioning cameras to capture the best angles. Unbeknownst to the crew, they had unknowingly set up near a mother bear's den. The bear, sensing a potential threat to her cubs, watched from a distance. Her protective instincts were on high alert. The crew, busy with their preparations, did not notice the bear's presence until it was too late. As they were finalizing their setup, the mother bear charged from the undergrowth. Her powerful strides closed the distance quickly. The crew, startled and terrified, scrambled to react. Jake, thinking quickly, grabbed a tripod and tried to create a barrier. Mark and Emily joined in, using their equipment to form a makeshift shield. Despite their efforts, the bear's strength was overwhelming. She broke through the barrier, her roar filling the air. The crew realized they were in serious danger. They abandoned their gear and ran towards their vehicle, which was parked a short distance away. Hearts pounding, they reached the vehicle and climbed inside just as the bear reached the spot where they had been standing. The crew sat in the vehicle, breathless and shaken. They had narrowly escaped a potentially deadly encounter. The mother bear, seeing that the threat had passed, returned to her cubs. The crew watched in awe and fear as the bear disappeared back into the forest. The crew sat in their vehicle, their hearts still racing from the terrifying encounter. The Great Bear Rainforest, known for its stunning beauty, had just shown them its unpredictable and dangerous side. They took a moment to catch their breath and assess the situation. The gear they had abandoned was scattered around the clearing, some of it damaged by the bear's powerful charge. Sarah, the director, quickly made the decision to leave the immediate area. They drove to a safer spot further down the river, away from the bear's den. The crew needed to regroup and figure out their next steps. They parked the vehicle and began to discuss what had happened. The experience was a stark reminder of the risks involved in filming wildlife, especially in such a remote and wild place. Jake, the cameraman, checked his footage. Despite the chaos, he had managed to capture the bear's charge. The raw power and speed of the bear were evident, a testament to the challenges of filming in the wild. The crew members were shaken, but they knew they had to continue their work. They decided to review their safety protocols and plan their next move with greater caution. The crew spent the rest of the day setting up camp in a safer location, far from any known bear habitats. They used this time to repair their equipment and discuss strategies to avoid similar situations in the future. Tom, the wildlife expert, emphasized the importance of being aware of their surroundings and recognizing signs of bear activity. He suggested setting up motion sensors and using drones to scout areas before moving in with their main equipment. As night fell, the crew gathered around a small campfire. The dense forest of the Great Bear Rainforest surrounded them, the sounds of nocturnal creatures filling the air. Despite the earlier scare, they were determined to continue their documentary. They knew the importance of their work in raising awareness about the natural world and its inhabitants. The next morning, the crew returned to the site to retrieve their gear. They moved cautiously, aware that the mother bear could still be nearby. Fortunately, the area was clear, and they quickly collected their equipment. Some items were damaged, but most were salvageable. They decided to relocate to a different part of the forest, closer to the coastline, where bear activity was less intense. The new location offered its challenges, but was safer. The crew set up near a rocky outcrop overlooking the ocean, where they could film bears fishing along the shore. The landscape was breathtaking, with rugged cliffs and the endless expanse of the Pacific Ocean. This spot provided a perfect backdrop for their documentary without the immediate danger of disturbing a bear's den. Over the next few days, the crew captured incredible footage. They filmed bears catching salmon, eagles soaring above, and the pristine beauty of the Great Bear Rainforest. The earlier encounter had made them more vigilant and respectful of the wildlife they were documenting. They used their new safety measures and remained alert at all times. The experience left a lasting impact on each crew member. They had come face to face with the raw power of nature and had learned valuable lessons about the importance of caution and respect in the wild. The footage they collected was more than just material for a documentary. It was a reminder of the fragile balance between humans and nature. As they packed up to leave, the crew reflected on their journey. Three college friends, David Kaleo, Samuel Ikaika, and James Kiwi, had long dreamed of exploring Alaska's remote wilderness. After years of planning, they finally embarked on their journey, venturing deep into Alaska's vast backcountry. As experienced outdoorsmen, they were thrilled by the raw, untouched beauty surrounding them: towering mountains, dense forests, and a clear, fast-moving river near their campsite. The first day of their expedition was awe-inspiring. They hiked steadily, marveling at the landscape, and set up camp as the sun dipped below the horizon. The night was peaceful, with a small fire casting flickering shadows as they ate in contented silence. As darkness fell, the stars emerged in a brilliant display, and the friends drifted off to sleep, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Unbeknownst to them, a grizzly bear had caught their scent. Drawn by the faint smell of food, the bear, a large male preparing for winter, had been silently following their trail. As the night wore on, it circled the campsite, evaluating the situation with instinctual caution. The fire had died down, leaving little to deter the bear's advance. The next day began like the first, with the friends eager to continue their adventure. They broke camp and set off through challenging terrain, driven by the promise of untouched beauty ahead. By midday, they reached a plateau offering a breathtaking view. Miles of forested hills, snow-capped peaks, and the river winding below. They rested briefly, taking in the view and snapping photos. This was the wilderness they had dreamed of, a place few had ventured. They spent the afternoon exploring the plateau, careful to leave no trace of their presence, mindful of the delicate balance of the ecosystem. But as they enjoyed their adventure, the grizzly remained on their trail, its presence a stark reminder that in the wild, humans are not always at the top of the food chain. As evening approached, they selected a new campsite nestled between a cluster of tall pines. The trees offered some protection from the elements, and the ground was soft with pine needles, making it a comfortable spot to pitch their tents. They went through the routine of setting up camp, with David and Samuel taking care of the tents while James gathered firewood. As the sun dipped lower, they built another small fire, preparing their evening meal with the same care and efficiency they had honed over years of camping together. The night fell quickly in the wilderness, the warmth of the day giving way to the chill of the evening. The friends sat around the fire, sharing the kind of easy companionship that comes from years of friendship. The stars came out again, even brighter than the night before, and the forest around them seemed alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. The crackling of the fire and the occasional pop of a log breaking apart punctuated the night. But the bear was still there, watching from the shadows. It had followed them again, its interest piqued by their presence. The day had been extended for the bear as well, spent moving through the dense forest and keeping a careful distance from the humans. It was now closer than it had been the previous night, the scent of food stronger, and the bear's patience wearing thin. The night provided cover for its approach, the darkness concealing its movements as it crept nearer. The friends, unaware of the danger that lurked just beyond the glow of their fire, went to bed, tired from the day's exertion. They secured their food as best they could, hanging it high in a tree away from the tents, a precaution they had taken countless times before. They crawled into their sleeping bags, the warmth and comfort of their tents a stark contrast to the cold outside. Sleep came quickly, the sounds of the forest lulling them into a sense of security. But the bear was closer now, its hunger and curiosity overcoming any fear it might have had. It approached the campsite slowly, its movements deliberate and calculated. The scent of the food was intoxicating, and the bear's massive frame moved with a quiet grace as it closed in on the hanging provisions. With a swift and decisive motion, the bear brought down the food, tearing into the bags with a ferocity born of hunger. The noise was enough to wake the men, but by then it was too late. The bear, driven by hunger and instinct, tore through the campsite with terrifying speed. In mere moments, it reached the first tent, shredding the fabric and leaving no time for the three friends to react. The attack was swift and brutal, the bear's immense power rendering any hope of survival futile. It moved efficiently from tent to tent, its jaws and claws executing deadly work within seconds. In less than 2 minutes, the campsite was a scene of unimaginable violence. The friends' lives ended in a relentless assault. As silence returned to the forest, the bear, satisfied, departed, leaving behind only destruction. Days later, a search party, alerted by the families, arrived at a horrific scene. The campsite was unrecognizable, with tents shredded and the ground stained with blood. The remains of the friends, scattered and torn, bore the marks of the bear's ferocity. The attack shocked the region, sparking fears and urgent discussions about the dangers of venturing into bear country. Speculation arose. Was the bear driven by starvation, or had it been provoked? Yet the friends had done nothing wrong, their tragic end a reminder of nature's unpredictability. For their families, the loss was devastating, a dream of Alaskan adventure cruelly cut short by one of its most fearsome predators. June 10th, 2024. Tom, a seasoned mountain climber, set out to conquer a remote peak in the Rocky Mountains. Tom, a 38-year-old adventurer from Denver, Colorado, had been climbing mountains for over 2 decades. His passion for climbing began in his youth, and he had summited many challenging peaks around the world. Known for his skill and determination, Tom loved the thrill of reaching new heights and experiencing the untouched beauty of the wilderness. Tom had meticulously planned this climb for months. He chose a lesser-known peak in the Rockies, aiming for a new challenge away from the usual climbing routes. The peak, located in the rugged terrain of Colorado, offered stunning views and a sense of solitude that Tom cherished. He packed his gear, including ropes, an ice axe, crampons, and enough supplies for several days. Tom was well prepared and confident in his abilities. The journey began with a long hike through dense forests and rocky trails. Tom enjoyed the fresh mountain air and the sounds of nature around him. He felt a sense of freedom and excitement as he made his way higher into the mountains. The weather was clear, and the conditions were perfect for climbing. After several hours of hiking, Tom reached a high altitude where he decided to set up camp for the night. He found a flat area on the mountain surrounded by tall pine trees and snow-covered rocks. Tom set up his tent and prepared a simple meal. As he ate, he marveled at the beauty of the landscape around him. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the peaks, and the sky turned shades of pink and orange. Tom felt at peace, ready to rest and prepare for the final ascent the next day. Unbeknownst to Tom, he had set up camp in a grizzly bear's territory. The bear, feeling threatened by the unfamiliar presence, watched from a distance. As night fell, Tom settled into his tent, unaware of the danger nearby. The cold mountain air was crisp, and the silence of the wilderness was profound. Tom drifted off to sleep, dreaming of reaching the summit. In the early hours of the morning, Tom was abruptly awakened by the sound of heavy footsteps and a low growl. He quickly realized the danger he was in. The grizzly bear had approached his camp, driven by a sense of territorial defense. Tom's heart raced as he grabbed his ice axe, the only weapon he had. The bear charged at Tom, and he fought back with all his might. Using his ice axe, he managed to injure the bear, causing it to retreat. The struggle was intense, and Tom suffered injuries from the bear's powerful claws. Despite the pain, he stood his ground, determined to survive. The bear, now wounded, retreated into the forest, leaving Tom breathless and shaken. Tom assessed his injuries, realizing he needed to treat them quickly. He bandaged his wounds as best as he could, using his first aid kit. The encounter had left him exhausted and in pain, but his determination to complete the climb remained strong. Tom knew that he needed to keep moving to stay warm and avoid the risk of further danger. Tom, despite his injuries, knew he had to stay focused and keep moving. The early morning light began to creep over the horizon, casting a faint glow on the rugged terrain. He packed up his gear, making sure to secure everything tightly. The pain from his wounds was sharp, but Tom's determination pushed him forward. He had come too far to turn back now. The peak he aimed to summit was in the heart of the Rocky Mountains, near Long's Peak, a well-known and challenging climb in Colorado. Tom knew the terrain well and trusted his skills. He began his ascent, carefully placing each step to avoid slipping on the icy rocks. The air was thin at this altitude, making each breath a challenge. However, the breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains kept him motivated. As Tom climbed higher, he kept a vigilant eye on his surroundings. The memory of the bear attack was fresh in his mind, serving as a constant reminder of the wilderness's unpredictable nature. The climb was steep and demanding, requiring all his strength and concentration. He used his ice axe to anchor himself on the icy slopes, methodically making his way up. Hours passed, and the summit grew closer. Tom's body ached, and his injuries throbbed with every movement. He paused briefly to catch his breath and drink some water. The cold mountain air was refreshing, helping to numb the pain slightly. He could see the summit just ahead, its snow-covered peak glistening in the sunlight. With renewed determination, Tom pushed through the final stretch. Each step felt like a victory as he neared the top. Finally, he reached the summit. The sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. He stood at the peak, taking in the panoramic views of the Rocky Mountains. The sight was nothing short of magnificent, with endless snow-capped peaks stretching out before him. Despite the exhaustion and pain, Tom felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had overcome not only the physical challenge of the climb, but also the terrifying encounter with the grizzly bear. He took a moment to reflect on the journey and the obstacles he had faced. The experience had tested his limits and shown him the true meaning of resilience. After spending some time at the summit, Tom knew it was time to descend. The descent was just as challenging, requiring careful navigation and focus. He retraced his steps, making sure to move slowly and steadily. The journey down was long, but the thought of reaching safety kept him going. As he descended, Tom's mind was filled with thoughts of the bear encounter. The experience had left him with more than just physical scars. It had instilled a profound respect for the wild. He understood the importance of being prepared and the unpredictability of nature. The mountains were beautiful but also formidable, demanding respect from those who ventured into their depths. Tom finally reached the base of the mountain, exhausted but relieved. He made his way to the nearest ranger station in Estes Park, where he received medical attention for his injuries. The rangers were amazed by his story of survival and praised his bravery and determination. Tom's tale quickly spread, becoming a harrowing example of human resilience and the untamed power of the wilderness. In the days that followed, Tom recovered from his injuries. The experience had changed him, deepening his love for the mountains and his respect for their dangers. He continued to climb, but with a renewed sense of caution and preparedness. His encounter with the grizzly bear became a part of his story, a reminder of the thin line between adventure and peril in the wild.